Welcome to our introduction to counseling class, and in this class we'll be covering counseling skills. I must point out that these notes are used for class instruction purposes, and I do not own the copyright to this material. If, for instance, you may need to use the notes, please acknowledge the notes as not your own copyright. Thank you and welcome to the class. We shall cover some of the basic counseling skills as covered under attending skills, covered under reflecting skills, responding skills, and processing skills. In attending, we are looking at attending as a way of expressing awareness and interest in what the client is communicating, both verbally and non-verbally. Attending refers to the ways in which counselors can be with their clients both physically and psychologically, according to Egan, 1998. Effective attending tells the clients that you're with them and that they can share their world with you. And what we are saying here is that basically you are communicating that ideal or that wish that I am here for you and you can share your world with me. If you have observed, as I was talking, you may see that something distracted my attention, and for a moment I was not attending. Attending helps us to better understand the client through careful observation. You are giving your all during that particular interaction. Attending is a way of telling the client, I am here, speak. It's a way to help the client relax and feel comfortable, to express their ideas and feelings freely in their own way. It's also a way of communicating that you can be trusted. It is also an invitation for the client to take a more active role in their own sessions. Proper attending, as we may have discussed in the past, is about appropriate eye contact, looking at the client without staring at them. It's about the right facial expressions, the appropriate smile, the appropriate nod to indicate I'm hearing you, maintaining a relaxed posture and leaning forward occasionally, using the natural head and arm movement, like yes, I hear you, and such other gestures that could be used. It's a way of verbally following the client using a variety of brief encouragement such as yes, or by repeating keywords. It is also a way in which the counselor communicates that they are observing the client's body language. Attending skills include listening, observing, and empathy. Active listening, and it would be good at this juncture to underline the word active. Listening refers to the ability of counselors to capture and understand the messages clients communicate as they tell their stories, whether those messages are transmitted verbally or non-verbally, clearly, or in a vague manner. For you, the counselor, You are communicating, I can capture you. You are communicating an understanding of this message because you are actively listening. And I said we underline the word active. And this is to say that listening happens at the hearing level, at the observation level, for the nonverbal communication that would come through different body movements. Because when somebody pauses and then their voice become a little bit drawn and then their face is showing some sadness, the counselor need to pick those cues very fast and seek for the client to explain what is happening. Clients want more than the physical presence of the counselor. They want the counselor to be present psychologically, socially, and emotionally. I hope we are still getting why active. You are communicating, I'm here psychologically. By this, you are able to hear their deep pain when words are not available for them to communicate the same. You are there socially, you understand their world. You are there emotionally, you can capture the pain and the emotions behind the words. I get amused by counselors who will stand and say, I never watch the news, I never read the newspapers, I am not bothered about what they do, at the religious sphere, I am not bothered by the economy, I don't care whether it is raining or not. And this is a way of communicating distance. Because if you are not keenly aware of the world of your clients, and sometimes not by being there physically, but by doing wide reading. If you don't care about their world, you'll be in no position to actually understand where they are coming from. Don't be like the pastor who only waits for his people or her people to come to church on Sunday. Not bothered what the economy is doing to them, not bothered, the distances they had to walk in a rainy season in a muddy stretch of road to come to church. All they are interested is, you are here, it is time to give, and give willingly. A counselor needs to conceptualize the world of their client so that they are able to help them. Active listening encourages the client to share information by providing verbal and nonverbal expressions of interest. And listening skills, according to Egan, involves 4 skills. That is when we are talking about active listening. And these listening skills that indicate we are listening at the active level is number 1, listening to and understanding the verbal messages. The spoken words. What is verbalized? Are we able to understand? Then number 2, listening to and interpreting the nonverbal messages. The body communication, the gestures. What is behind the sadness? What is behind the laughter? What is behind, any other gesture that the client may send out? And this is very, very important to all of us. Listening to and understanding the context. Sometimes our clients are not able to verbalize well, but they are coming within a context. And the context could include the religious, the context could include the family at the social level, the context could include the environment, where they live and who they relate with. The context could be about their working areas, the jobs and whatever is happening there. So listen, and then listening with empathy. Listening with empathy includes getting into the conceptual world of your client. Are you able to imagine what they are going through? Are you able to picture some of the pain? This is not where we say, I understand what you are going through, especially during times like death and major losses. A counselor listening with empathy is, I can only imagine what you are going through. And in this way, you are able to get into the conceptual world of your client. Then we have verbal reasoning. Verbal reasoning, the minimum verbal responses, the spoken word. We can use open-ended questions in which we may ask them questions probably requiring a yes or no answer. Then verbal and nonverbal ways of encouraging the client to continue to share his or her thoughts, feelings or behaviors. The the tell me more, then asking question, oh, he yelled at you. Then can you give me an example? And then asking, and that means when you want clarification from your client. Showing interest, into their story. And remember, the world of the client sometimes is very muddled, a very confused state. Some of them, depending on where they are coming from and what they have gone through, they may come with a jabber of thoughts and sometimes even sentences that do not make sense. So show interest in their story. Don't act this very professional guy who is actually looking at the watch and wondering, like, when is this 1 hour going to end? So be there in the present moment. Encourage your client to develop ideas. Communicate our understanding of these ideas. Request clarification of understanding. And as you do this, build the therapeutic alliance. And therapeutic alliance is built by communicating, I hear you, I am here for you, I am listening to you. And this moment is actually your moment. Nonverbal listening is about maintaining the eye contact, making few distracting movements as much as possible for you, the therapist, for you, the counselor. Avoid making distracting movements. Lean forward and face your client. Remember, we talked about the solar sitting position. Then have an open posture. Allow few interruptions. And this is why in professional counseling, we have that door hanging there, outside your office at the door, that says session in progress or session going on, so that whoever comes in or would want to come in knows that something is happening inside that room. It also signals interest with encouragers. Encouragers are tell me more, and the facial expressions. Active listening is where you listen with your mouth mostly closed. With your eyes, you watch and observe the body language. With your ears, you listen actively to your client or your patient. And with your heart, you are feeling the patient or your client's pain. And this is what we call empathy. And with your body, you are leaning towards your client or your patient. Sitting skills, which we have handled in the past, is the Sora's position. And we talked about sitting squarely, adopting a posture that indicates involvement. And the word square, as demonstrated in class, may be taken literally or metaphorically to mean that the body orientation you adopt should convey the message that you're involved with the client. It could be at an angle of 90 degrees, but you are able to see their eyes, you are able to see their body movements, you are able to see their gestures, and therefore it is communicating that you are with this particular person. Turning your body away from another person while you talk to him or her can lessen your degree of contact with that person. Now, can you imagine how it feels if you are talking to somebody who is facing the other side or giving you their backs? If for any reason facing the person square is too threatening, then you can use the angled position so that it doesn't become threatening. In adopting an open posture, ask yourself to what degree your posture communicates openness and availability to the client. Avoid crossed legs and crossed arms because this could mean I am not involved. You know, when you cross your arms, you are communicating I'm not involved. Crossed arms or crossed legs can be a sign of lesser involvement or lesser availability to those others. An open posture with the hands open, legs rightly open, can indicate that I am not defensive. And like we have said in the past, be careful, especially for our sisters, and the kind of dressing you also appear to in your therapy room. Because open posture with not a very comfortable skirt, short, could also be threatening to your client, especially when they are of the opposite gender. Leaning towards the client shows your involvement. Just a slight inclination towards the client might be a way of signaling that you are listening. And let it be appropriate. It communicates that I'm with you, I'm interested in what you have to say, while leaning back is like I am withdrawn. Maintaining good eye contact without staring, this conveys the message that the counselor is interested with what the client has to say. It's a way of saying I'm interested in you, I am with you, and you may need to look away every so often in order not to stare, but monitor the amount you look away. Appropriately. Avoid making the client uncomfortable. Relax and be natural. Try to be relaxed or natural with the client. Do not engage in a lot of hard movement, what we call fidgeting. Do not be nervous. Do not put on a distracting facial expression. Be relaxed and also convey to the client that I'm comfortable. Seeing, observing your body and expressions, and this helps to put the client at ease. Empathetic listening. This encourages a client to talk more, so you're able to understand their difficulty and view of the world. It makes a client feel they have been heard. It helps establish a therapeutic relationship. Empathetic listening is active because you are communicating. I am able to get into your world. I am able to capture you. I am able to hear where you're coming from. You are communicating. I may not fully understand your pain, but I'm imagining it, and it is not easy. It is communicating that what you have heard and understood. It involves more than one sense. It will involve the ears, it will involve the eyes, it will involve touch, and the touch should be appropriate, and especially depending on the faith and the culture. Listen to content and process. Content is what is specifically said. Listen carefully, not only to what the person says, but the words. What is the meaning behind these words? The expressions and the patterns the person is using, which may give you a deeper insight. Counselors should also develop the ability to remember what was said, as well as to clarify what was said or finding out what was not said. The counselor should listen to the whole person in the context of his or her social settings. And I have said this in the past and I want to emphasize it. The client comes carrying a certain context. This person could be anxious or could be going through worrying moments because of what is happening at his faith level, what is happening at the family level. So if this client is coming with a marriage issue, and sometimes for you, the counselor, you have issues with marriage, and probably you believe nobody should get married because being married is being a slave to somebody else, it's getting misused and the like, check out your belief systems. So immediately this person comes with a marriage issue, where do you stand? Will you hear them without the lenses of what is happening within your life? Listening to the process. And this is all about the nonverbal phenomenon or phenomena, including how the content is conveyed. The themes, what are the underlying themes? What are the clear themes coming out? Is it about family? Is it about employment? Is it about fear for the future? They're about to retire and they don't know what's going to happen in retirement. Is it about interactions? Listen to the context. And as you do this, ladies and gentlemen, remember we have several roadblocks to effective listening. And this may include, but not limited to, the following: inadequate or on-off listening, especially where there are distractions. The phone. Don't get lost in your own thoughts or thinking about what you intend to say in reply. Sometimes, and especially within the marriage situation, the boss-employee context, because of the fear of the authority and the servant kind of engagement, sometimes we listen to give a response, to give an answer. We don't listen to understand. And therefore, as a person is speaking, you are already formulating an answer. And in that way, you end up not listening. Evaluative listening. Most people listen evaluatively to others. This means that they are judging and labeling what the other person is saying. And especially for us in the counseling field, there is always the danger of listening to get a diagnosis. You are listening to hear, is this the bipolar that I am probably guessing? And therefore we need to listen without those lenses. We listen to judge a person as right or wrong, good or bad, acceptable or unacceptable, relevant and irrelevant, etc. And in this process, we lose them. Then there's what is called filter listening. We tend to listen to ourselves, other people, and the world around us through biased, often prejudiced filters. Filtering listening distorts our understanding of our clients. And let me say this, and especially in the Kenyan context. When we listen, and we are already putting somebody someplace because they are either Kikuyu, because they are Kambas, because they are of the Somali origin, because this person in the history taking, they said they are Anglicans or Catholic or Pentecostal, AIPCA, whichever denomination. And as they speak, you are already associating some of what they are telling you to the biases you already have, the stereotypes that we move along with. Another roadblock is fact-centered rather than person-centered listening. Asking only informational or factual questions won't solve the client's problem. The client may end up feeling like they're in a police station getting interrogated and harassed and therefore become defensive when we ask so many questions. And then what happened? And then what did you do after that? And then why do you think this must have happened? Already they are feeling judged. To have them come out with more, ask them, yes, and can we hear what you did after that? As you speak, Jane, Mary, Joseph, or whoever the name is, would you mind tell us, or would you mind sharing with me what you are feeling without judgment? Then another roadblock is rehearsing. If you are rehearsing your answer mentally, you are not listening attentively. The other roadblock is the red flag listening. To some people, certain words act like red flags, putting them on immediate, like attention. And this has to do with the counselor's sometimes unfinished business. The client is talking about, my husband came drunk and he was shouting all over. So you hear drunk husband. And then you remember your marriage is already on the logs because your husband drinks. So immediately this becomes a red flag and you're already looking for rebels. Then another roadblock is sympathetic listening. Use of sympathy is limited in the helping relations because it can distort the counselor's listening to the client's story. To sympathize with someone is to become that person's accomplice. Sympathy conveys pity and complicity and can diminish the extent to which you could help the client. Sympathy is that aspect of, oh, that shouldn't have happened. That man, and you call him your husband. He must be a dog, like you are rightly saying. I really feel for you, it's so sad. And then the next moment, the client is removing their handkerchief, you are removing yours, because you feel he's living or she is living with a beast of an individual. Remember, sympathy is very different from empathy. Active listening, ladies and gentlemen, focuses on all aspects of a client's expression. It resists distractions, listen to the client's tone of voice, listen for cues to the client's feelings, listen for generalization, deletions, and distortions. Are they just generalizing their story? Are there some parts they have already deleted from their story? Once again, when we are dealing with adolescents, the youth, when we are dealing with couples and the issue of unfaithfulness comes in, oftentimes one of the partner, and especially the person who could be guilty, and I'm saying guilty in quotes, because oftentimes there was one who did much than the other to cause some of these things. So they are likely to delete part of their story when they talk of like, I only kissed him. And then people who only kissed spend the night together somewhere. Listen for common cognitive and emotional themes. What are these cognitive and emotional themes? Sad, feeling dejected, I can't concentrate. Listen to all these. Empathy, on the other hand, is the ability to recognize and acknowledge the feelings of another person without experiencing that same emotion. It is an attempt to understand the world of the client by temporarily stepping into his or her shoes. I like putting it a little bit deeper than that. Deliberately conceptualizing the world of that other person. If somebody has lost a mother, if somebody has lost a parent, imagine what could be happening to them. Probably they were an only child. Probably there are 3 in the family and 2 of them are abroad. And after burial, the ones abroad will go back. Empathy is trying to imagine what happens to this who is left in Kenya, what is happening in the world of those others who go back to the foreign country. And if you are in their shoes, how would you take this? This understanding of the client's world must be shared with the client in either a verbal or non-verbal way. Mary, as you talk, I hear you say, and I'm imagining how this is. Now that your siblings will be going back abroad, I can imagine how lonely it will be for you. Would you mind sharing what is going through your mind as you'll be left in Kenya? And you wait for the client to respond. You wait for the client to share their world. The counselor must set aside his or her own frame of reference and try to see the world from the client's point of view. Empathy, to me, I call it a high skill. It is a skill that we develop over time. It is a skill one needs to be very proficient in order to use and develop. And I would want to go a little bit deeper and talk about empathy versus sympathy. I had alluded to this earlier on, but empathy is like literally, because it is not exactly putting yourself in the shoes of another. It is conceptualizing yourself in the shoes of those others, because you will never fit in my shoes. After I have walked with my new shoes for a month, there is a way my feet are able to fit in, snuggle inside the gaps, and where it used to squeeze before, I'm able to fit in. But for you, even when I've worn these shoes, probably for 6 months, they may still not fit you well, even when both of us are number 9. So it is conceptualizing yourself in my shoes and imagining how it would feel. It doesn't mean you feel exactly as your client feels, but you can only imagine that. While sympathy is feeling what another person is going through, for example, feeling the sadness a family is feeling from a loss, and displaying the same during therapy. The key elements of basic empathy is that basic empathy can be expressed by restating what the client has implied using the following formula. You feel, Jane, that, or you feel sad because your mother died. You're also mentioning the experiences, the behaviors, and feelings as elements of empathy, or being very much aware of these experiences, behaviors, and feelings as elements of empathy. An empathic response has the same key elements as the client's story, experiences, behavior, and feelings. Jane, you feel sad because you lost your mother. I hear you saying that this has destabilized you and you are not able to sleep. I also hear you say that of late you are feeling disengaged with the normal things of life you used to enjoy. And then you pause, you wait for your client to confirm or add details you may not have picked. Understanding, on the other side, is created by the use of advanced empathy. It attends to the feelings and those that are not expressed by the client. Advanced empathy helps the client see the bigger picture. It helps to open up areas for counseling for which the client is either unaware or has only hinted at. When you display empathy to your client, they are now able to trust you, they are now able to get deeper into their world and open this world to you. Advanced empathy also helps to identify the themes that could revolve around the story of your client. It helps the client to own his or her feelings and behaviors. And therefore, how do we express empathy? Empathy is the action of understanding, being aware of, being sensitive to, and vicariously experiencing the feelings, thoughts, and experiences of your client. Empathy is showing understanding, is showing that you are aware of, you are being sensitive, and by vicariously experiencing, that is a way of saying that even when this didn't happen to you, you can hear your client and what they are going through. You can experience their feelings, their thoughts, and convey the same through letting the client know, I hear you. Some of the examples of expressing empathy is, I see, I understand. And whenever you use the word I understand, I usually say, use it with qualifiers. I understand what you are sharing. It is not I understand your exact world, but I understand, I hear what you are sharing. And you are also saying, I am sorry about the loss, I am sorry about the job. You're also expressing that I'm so tired, but I cannot sleep. When I wake up, I'm already too late for work. Yesterday, my boss fired me. And what we are saying here is, to go back a little bit, is when the client says, I'm so tired, but I cannot sleep, your response becomes, I see, as you nod. Now you are saying, even as I see you looking so tired, I now understand, or I hear why. And when I woke up yesterday, I'm already too late for work. Yesterday my boss fired me. I understand. Why the fatigue, why the despondency, why the depression, but not understanding their real pain. And then out of this, you're saying, I am sorry about your job. Observing skill. Observing. Close to about 85% or more of client communication is nonverbal. The client's eye contact patterns, body language, and vocal qualities should be observed. The client may be expected to break eye contact. They may engage in body movement and a change in vocal qualities when they are talking about topics of varying levels of comfort to them. Observation is making sure that you, the counselor, is capturing some of these eye breaks. You are able to observe some of this body movement. When the clients cross their arms or legs when they want to cross over a topic, communicating, I just can't talk about this. Look at the facial expressions. The brow here may become closed or furrowed. The lips may tighten or loosen. Sometimes they may smile at an inappropriate time. They are talking about death, yet they are smiling. What is this they are trying to cover? It is important that you also listen to the discrepancies in nonverbal behavior. What about silence? Silence can encourage the client to reflect and continue sharing. It also can allow the client to experience the power of his or her own words. I usually say this to my students, I say this to those I train, that silence is a very important skill in counseling. And for you, the counselor, do not become uncomfortable with silence. Believe you me, some clients will pay to come to therapy just to have that quiet time in a safe place, and after they talk for 10-15 minutes, they would want to enjoy their silence in a place where they are not judged. Silence can be used as an encourager. It helps keep the focus on the client. It can help the client absorb what was said. It can help the client correct his or her thoughts for expression. So do not be in a rush to break this silence. Where possible, let the client be the one to break the silence. Then we get into reflecting skills. Reflecting skills include some of the following: reflection of feelings, restatement, paraphrasing, summarizing, among others. Maybe you'll allow me to go through these one by one. And we start off with reflective skill. A reflective skill can be defined as mirroring or reflecting back to the client exactly what he or she is conveying to the counselor. The reflective comment includes not only the specific content of the message, but also the implied, stated, or underlying feelings. In order to reflect, the counselor needs to listen to the feelings behind the words of the client and not only to the words. The reflective comment facilitates an atmosphere of understanding and makes people feel heard, valued, and safe enough to share more of themselves, often on a deeper level. And what I'm saying here, ladies and gentlemen, is that reflecting is when you hold a mirror to the client so that you are the mirror and they can hear themselves through the mirror. And of course, a mirror will always give much of what the original image held. Sometimes there may be a few distortion because of the angle of the mirror and the like, the writings and the like. Even in conversation, these distortions may be there. But as much as possible, you are, restating their words back. You are reflecting what they said. Jane, as you talk, I hear you say that you got so hurt when your boyfriend left. You can also reflect the feelings. Reflection of feelings is when the clinician expresses the client's feelings, either stated or implied, just by the same example I've given. The counselor tries to perceive the emotional state of the client and respond in a way that demonstrates an understanding of the client's emotional state. Reflection of feeling helps to check whether or not they accurately understand what the client is feeling. Jane, as you were talking, I noticed your tears were falling. And I hear you say that your heart got broken. And you push for the client to confirm that this is exactly what is happening to them. Reflection of feelings bring out problem areas without the client being pushed or forced. It helps the client, or rather the counselor, realize that the client is understood. The counselor also is conveying that he or she understands what the client feels. It increases awareness of their feelings. That is the client's feeling. It helps them to learn that feelings and behaviors are connected. An example of reflection of feelings. When I get home in the evening, my house is a mess. The kids are dirty. My husband does not care about dinner. I do not feel like going home at all. And then you say, Jane, you are not satisfied with the way the house chores are organized. That irritates you. And then, Jane, if they are hard light, they will say yes. Restatement is also another key skill. And restating is simply playing back to the client what they have said word for word. In reflecting, you don't repeat what the client said word for word. In restatement, you now become the actual mirror and you give back the client's words, staying close to their language. Selecting keywords spoken by the client that captures the client's experience from the counselor's perspective. This is where you could actually say, like, Jane, you mentioned that you felt really upset for days after what you called that blowout with John. That altercation with John. And that now you're starting to have some new insights about the relationship. Am I capturing some of what you've been saying? Then we go to paraphrasing. Paraphrasing is when the clinician restates the content of the client's previous statement. And paraphrasing uses words that are similar to the client, but fewer. It says the same thing in your own words. And sometimes there is no major difference in the three skills, but of course when you listen to this and you follow the notes well, you'll notice some differences. You summarize what has been said in your own words. This is especially helpful if the client has given a lot of information or is especially upset or incoherent. You can help clarify what has been said by paraphrasing the most important part of what the client has said. The purpose of paraphrasing is to communicate to the client that you understand what he or she is saying. Paraphrasing helps verify the perception of the client and their statements. It also places a spotlight on an issue. It helps the client realize that the counselor understands what they are saying. It helps them to clarify their remarks and also to focus on what is important and relevant. I will give an example of paraphrasing in the following slide. My husband irritates me. This is Jane saying this. She picks on me for no reason at all. We do not like each other. So you are having problems getting along with your husband. You are concerned about your relationship with him. And if Jane is heard, of course the response becomes yes. Summarizing is the process of tying together all that has been talked about during parts or all of the counseling session. It attempts to draw together the main threads of what has been discussed. It clarifies what has been accomplished and what still needs to be done. Remember the summaries we used to do in school? Remember some of the summaries sometimes we give even in this course? Sometimes you will be given a reading of about 6 pages and you will be told to put that into paragraphs. And the critical thing here is you are picking the main thoughts. You are picking the main words. You are summarizing these in your own understanding so that the client can pick, this is what I said, and therefore I was well attended to. Summarizing enables the counselor to get a better understanding of the things spoken and enables the client to see what progress has been made. Summarizing is an important way for the clinician to gather together all that which has already been said, make sure that the client has been understood correctly, and prepare the client to move on. Summarizing is putting together a group of reflections. The main thoughts, the main ideas, the very issues that brought this person to therapy, have they been attended? Summarizing helps the clinician, and remember I said in another class that the counselor sometimes is referred to as the clinician. We may use the word therapist to mean the same. And therefore summarizing helps the therapist, the counselor, to provide focus for the session, to confirm the client's perceptions, and to focus on one issue while acknowledging the existence of others. Summarizing will give you, my students, a way forward to terminate a session in a logical way. Summarizing helps the client to clarify what they mean. It helps them to realize that the counselor understands and to have a sense of movement and progress. Some example of summarizing. This is now coming from the counselor. Jane, in our session, we discussed your relationship with your husband. You said there were conflicts right from the start related to the way money was handled, and that you often felt you gave more importance to your friends. Yet on the whole, things went well and you were quite happy until 3 years ago. Then the conflicts became more frequent and more intense, so much so that he left you twice and talked of divorce too. Have I understood the situation properly? And if this is what has been discussed in the session, the response we expect from Jane is yes, that is it. Ladies and gentlemen, summarizing is an art we also develop with time, and one way during sessions to make sure we summarize well is that as the client is highlighting key areas of their issues, their challenges, you are picking them so that you will be consolidating this at the end to make your summary. Responding. Responding is the act of communicating information to the client that includes providing feedback and emotional support, addressing issues of concern, and teaching skills. Responding skills examples include reflecting skills. Reflective listening is to serve as a mirror for the person speaking. Reflecting cluster includes the paraphrasing, the reflecting of feelings, the reflecting of meanings, the summative reflecting. Responding also will include what we do during probing. It means asking for additional information. Effective probing is a way of making things flow from what previously happened, asking for elaboration, classification and repetition. It helps to fill in the missing pieces. Probing or questioning as our next skill. Probing is the counselor's use of a question to direct the client's attention to explore his or her situation in greater depth. The questions we ask are important in helping a client open up or close themselves down. By probing is, we are softly trying to dig more by using open questions, by using closed questions. Closed questions it used to get specific information, and the answer we expect from a closed question is a no or yes. Open question is used to gather lots of information, like Jane, as you talk, I hear you mention how this hurt you. Would you mind to tell me more? You are inviting Jane to go a little bit deeper and share their feelings. Open questions have no correct answers and require an explanation. Example, like what I gave earlier. Another example is, what brought you here today? How do you feel about this relationship? How does that make you feel? And of course, I also alluded to closed questions as only requiring a yes or no answer. Useful for getting necessary information and help a client, on the discussion. Open up more or get in touch more with the discussion. Example, what is your name and age? Is this a relationship stressful? Are you ready to stop that? And probing, like we said earlier, the question should be open-ended because we are seeking for more information. Probing helps to focus the client's attention on a feeling, situation, or behavior. Probing may encourage the client to elaborate, clarify, or illustrate what he or she has been saying. Probing may enhance the client's awareness and understanding of his or her situations and feelings. Probing directs the client to areas that need attention. Examples of probing. This is now Jane, the client, speaking. I was always known to be a good worker. I even received an award. Lately, I had some issues. My husband is just not helping. That is why I'm always late. As the counselor listens, in his mind, there is the question of, is it work problems related to drug use? But then, he uses a probing question. Tell me about the problem you have been having at the workplace. And Jane responds, actually, I have had lots of problems, not only being late. You are allowing Jane to go deeper into their world and to share that world. Interpreting. Interpreting is the client's explanation of the client's issues. Interpreting is the clinician or the counselor's explanation of the client issues after observing the client behavior, listening to them, and considering other sources of information. Effective interpretation has three components: determining and restating basic messages, adding ideas for a new frame of reference, validating these ideas with the client. They are only your ideas you have interpreted, and therefore you validate them or you confirm them with your client. And examples of interpretation is, this is now the counselor. Jane, you say you are difficult in getting along with your boss. Once you mentioned that sometimes you simply broke the rules for the sake of breaking them. You also say that you are always late, even when your husband had everything ready for the children. In the past, you said it was because of the negative behavior of your boss. This time, you blamed your husband. Is it possible, Jane, that your problems at work, like being late, are related to your alcohol use? And then, now Jane pauses, reflects, and answers, I always thought I could control it. A good therapist now should pick from this. Of course, Jane thinks she can control, but of course from there is where you pick. And expand this to let them understand that they are slowly losing control. Self-disclosure is also another skill we use. This is when we share personal information with a client, and it must be for the benefit of the client and not the counselor. Remember, the person who paid for the therapy hour is your client, not yourself. And therefore, self-disclosure should be used sparingly and appropriately in order to enhance the therapeutic relationship. It can be used as a model to help the client self-disclose. It should not take the focus of the client. An example of self-disclosure, your client is sharing about pain they felt when they lost their loved one. And probably as you listen, you're also becoming emotional. Self-disclosure is when you pause after they are finished and you tell them, Jane, I hear you. As you talked, this reminded me of the pain I felt when I lost my own mother. You have disclosed that you have also gone through grief. Yet you have also appropriately indicated that the pain you are feeling now is not related to Jane's pain. Jane's pain has only brought the memories. And therefore, self-disclosure helps Jane or your client to understand, I am dealing with a human being who feels pain, who has gone through grief, not like mine, but could understand the concept of grief. And that's why we are saying it should be appropriate. Not when your client is saying, I got raped, and you're also saying, yeah, that is nothing. I also survived of rape. And, sometimes it can be very heartless. I lost a job. The client is saying, I lost a job, and you're telling him or her, don't worry about that. It is now 5 years since I lost mine. And you can see me here, I'm very successful. You have taken 5 years, my dear, to heal. Your client is seated in your office at the present moment, and they have not healed. So self-disclosure should be appropriate. Confrontation is also another very interesting skill that is used in counseling. And confrontation doesn't exactly mean what this word means in English. Confrontation in the context of counseling is a form of advanced empathy which helps the client look at thoughts and behaviors that might be self-defeating or harmful. It is a form of challenge and not a verbal assault. It needs to be done with a high level of empathy. Usually, it is in reference to an incongruence or discrepancy on the client's part. Confrontation, ladies and gentlemen, is Jane is talking about how the husband is uncaring, and yet in the course of it all, Jane mentions that on 14th of February, we had a wonderful dinner with my husband. So the counselor here confronts Jane and saying, Jane, you shared and you said that your husband is very uncaring. Yet, you mentioned you had fun and he treated you out on Valentine's Day. Is this the behavior of somebody uncaring? You are confronting the discrepancy, the inconsistency of saying the husband is uncaring, yet they are treating this person out. It could be vice versa, when the husband is in therapy and accusing the wife of not being caring. Then we have another skill called immediacy. Immediacy is the ability of the counselor to use the immediate situation to invite the client to look at what is going on between them in the relationship. It often feels risky and unfamiliar. It implies the use of the present tense. It is one of the most powerful skills in counseling. Immediacy uses present tense statements. It usually relates to the counselor's view of the relationship. It adds intimacy to the counseling relationship. And let's be very careful in the use of the word intimacy. All that we mean here is it creates a feeling of some professional closeness, identification, person feeling understood in therapy. Immediacy is the here and now situations happening in that particular session. When we use words, I hear you now saying, Jane, this must be very painful for you. The immediate dynamics at that particular moment. And then we have directives. Directives, and this is what I call high-order counseling skills, and this is my own terminology. High-order counseling skills. Remember, counseling is not guidance, but once in a while, we give instructions. So directives is basically the counselor telling the client what to do. Instructions given to the client, like when you actually give homework and insist it must be done before the next session so that it becomes the opening part of the therapy session for the next time. The timing in giving a directive is important, and in your other classes, in your other interaction in counseling, you will be coming, or you may have come across theories of counseling. Some theories use more directives than others. Then we have advising. Once again, I am carefully using this word because remember, counseling, professional counseling is not advising, but there will always be aspects of guidance in professional counseling. There will be aspects of giving information in counseling. there will be aspects of holding your client's hand once in a while during professional counseling. Remember, counseling is not a rigid profession in which we say that the path must be this. But with our development in this field, we now see where its skills come in. Advising is a form of directive, but should not be seen as a command or a demand. Counselors need to take responsibility for the advice they give. There are times your client may present themselves in therapy looking very shabby, shaggy, haggard, like they took or they did a change of clothing 5 days ago. After exploring why this is, you may seek, because you now know your client, to advise them. John, maybe the last time you came to therapy, you were in this dress suit and you looked so beautiful, handsome, depending whether it is a she or he. And I would wish that next time you come to make a choice of the same kind of clothing or similar clothing. You're also affirming them by telling them how good they would look. Sometimes, and especially for depressive clients, they feel like nobody cares. They feel like though their world has come crumbling down. Some of these advice will be affirming to their general well-being. Do the advising in such a way that it leaves the client with the ultimate choice. Not your choice, but them. I would feel good, John, if you would dress in a same suit or a similar suit like the one you had 2 weeks ago. But don't feel pressed about that, John. You are giving them room to make a choice. Feedback is about giving information about how the person is experienced by others. As you listen to them, you are also communicating the things you have picked. It serves to help the client see themselves more objectively as others see them. Feedback works best when it is requested or desired, when it is concrete. By concrete, as specific as possible. When they ask you, how is my new shoes? Don't go into so many details. You just mention you look so presentable in them. Feedback need to be positive. And once in a while when it is negative, let it address something that is changeable or controllable. Like negative feedback would be, yeah, your skirt today didn't look well pressed. Next time if they pressed it or ironed it, it would look wonderful. So you are allowing them room through feedback to change a few of the things. Processing is the act of the clinician or the therapist or the counselor thinking about his or her observations about the client and what the client has communicated. Processing allows the counselor to mentally catalog the following data. By processing, you are able to catalog all, to put this data in a certain way in the head or sometimes even physically in order to mentally capture your client's beliefs, knowledge, attitudes, and expectations. information given to them by his or their family, and then the counselor's observation. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to take a pause there, and if you have any question, you know my number, you know my email, you can always reach out to me. We'll be moving with this series so that we get more in this introductory course in counseling. Thank you very much. The Lord bless you.